I stood in our kitchen, adjusting my tie for what felt like the 100th time, watching Julia apply her lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. She wore that black dress, the one that cost more than my monthly car payment, and looked absolutely stunning. Too bad she was getting ready to parade me around like a trained monkey at her office party. "Alex, hurry up," she said without looking at me. "Eric hates when people are late." Eric, her boss. The golden boy with his trust fund smile and his corner office overlooking Elliott Bay. I'd met him exactly twice, and both times he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. "I'm ready," I said, grabbing my jacket. "Just waiting on you." She finally turned around, and I saw that look in her eyes, the one that said she was already regretting bringing me along. "Remember what we talked about. Don't mention your little advertising campaigns. Nobody cares about local mattress stores." My little advertising campaigns. Right, the ones that paid for half our mortgage while she climbed the corporate ladder at Morrison and Associates PR. The drive to the Four Seasons was silent, except for the rain drumming against the windshield. Seattle in October, perpetually gray, like my mood. Julia checked her phone every 30 seconds, probably texting Eric about arrival times or whatever important people discuss. "There's Eric," she said as we walked into the ballroom. She waved at a tall guy with silver hair and a smile that screamed expensive dental work. "Eric, over here." He approached with two women flanking him, one I recognized as Chloe, Julia's best friend and office gossip queen, and another blonde who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. "Julia, you look fantastic," Eric said, taking her hand and holding it just a little too long. His eyes barely registered my existence. "And this must be your husband." "Alex Porter," I said, extending my hand. His handshake was weak, distracted. Right, the advertising guy." "That's me," I said, "making mattresses seem exciting since 2018. Nobody laughed. Julia shot me a warning look. "Well," Eric said, "we should mingle. Julia, there are some board members I want you to meet." As they started to walk away, Julia turned back to me. Her voice was low, but not low enough. "Don't stand next to me tonight. You're embarrassing me in front of my boss." The words hit like a slap. Around us, conversations continued, glasses clinked, people laughed. But for me, everything went quiet. I watched my wife of 8 years walk away with her boss, leaving me standing alone next to the shrimp cocktail. That's when I knew I was looking for someone who wasn't ashamed of me. Someone who didn't exist in this room. I made my way to the bar, ordered a whiskey, and pulled out my phone. The number was still in my contacts from 6 months ago when I'd suspected Julia of hiding something. I'd never called it then. Tonight felt different. "Ron Castellano, Private Investigations." "Ron, this is Alex Porter. We spoke a few months back about my wife." "Right, the PR lady. You decided not to proceed." "I'm proceeding now." "What changed your mind?" I watched Julia laugh at something Eric said, her hand touching his arm. "She just told me I embarrass her, in public, in front of her boss." "I see. What do you need?" "Everything. Emails, phone records, financial stuff, whatever you can get legally." "It'll take a week, maybe 2. Take your time. I want this done right." I hung up and ordered another whiskey. Across the room, I spotted Chloe talking animatedly to a group of women. Her voice carried over the music. "Julia's been working so many late nights lately. Sometimes I wonder if she's really at the office, you know?" One of the women giggled. "With a boss like Eric Shaw, I wouldn't blame her." "Oh, you didn't hear this from me, but—" Chloe lowered her voice, but not enough. "They've been having these private meetings, very private." My grip tightened on the glass, so it wasn't just my imagination. I finished my drink and walked toward the exit. Julia was deep in conversation with Eric and some board members, completely absorbed in her networking. She didn't even notice me leave. Back home, I sat at my laptop and started making lists. Bank accounts, credit cards, shared assets. Julia had always handled our finances, claiming she was better with numbers. Maybe it was time I took a more active interest. I logged into our joint checking account and transferred half the balance to my personal savings. Then I called our credit card companies and froze her cards, citing suspicious activity. It would buy me time while Ron did his investigation. My phone buzzed. A text from Julia. "Where did you go? People are asking about you." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching Eric Shaw. Social media, company profiles, public records. The guy lived in a penthouse downtown, drove a vintage Porsche, and was married to a woman named Lisa, who ran her own interior design firm. Interesting. I found Lisa Shaw's business email and drafted a message. "Mrs. Shaw, I don't know if you're aware, but your husband has been having very private meetings with one of his employees. As someone who values marriage, I thought you should know. A concerned friend. I didn't send it. Not yet. But I saved it to drafts. My phone rang. Julia. Alex, what the hell? My credit card was declined at dinner. Suspicious activity, I said. I had to freeze the accounts, for security. That's ridiculous. Unfreeze them right now? Can't. Have to wait for the bank to investigate. Could take a few days. Silence. Then, this is incredibly inconvenient. Sorry about that. How was dinner with Eric? Another pause. It was a work dinner. Of course it was. See you at home. I hung up and poured myself another whiskey. Outside, rain continued to fall against the windows. Seattle rain, steady, persistent, wearing everything down over time, just like revenge. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning, Julia left early for work without saying goodbye. I found her coffee mug in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim like a signature of contempt. She'd always been ambitious, but lately that ambition felt like a weapon pointed directly at me. My phone buzzed. Ron. Got some preliminary information. Can you meet? When and where? Pike Place Market, 1 hour. I'll be at the coffee stand near the fish throwers. I found Ron exactly where he said he'd be. A compact guy in his 50s with gray hair and the kind of eyes that missed nothing. Ex-Seattle PD, according to his website. He handed me a manila envelope. Your wife's been busy, he said. Inside were printed emails, phone records, and bank statements I'd never seen before. Julia had opened a separate credit line 6 months ago. The statements showed charges at expensive restaurants, hotels, even a jewelry store. The emails are interesting, Ron said. She's been corresponding with Eric Shaw about more than work projects. I flipped through printouts of their exchanges. Professional at first, then increasingly personal. Late-night messages about private consultations and off-site meetings. How did you get these? Let's just say your wife isn't as careful with digital security as she thinks. One email made my stomach turn. Julia to Eric. Alex has been asking questions about my schedule. We need to be more careful. Eric's response, don't worry about your husband. Focus on us. There's more, Ron said. Hotel records, restaurant receipts. They've been meeting regularly for 3 months. I closed the envelope. What's this going to cost me? We'll work something out. But Alex, what are you planning to do with this information? I'm going to make them both very uncomfortable. That afternoon, I had a meeting at Morrison & Associates. Julia didn't know I was coming. I'd scheduled it directly with Greg Hamilton, one of the board members, under the pretense of discussing a potential advertising partnership. The Morrison & Associates building was all glass and steel, designed to intimidate. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, where Greg's secretary led me to a conference room overlooking the Sound. Alex Porter, Greg said, shaking my hand. I understand you're interested in working with us on some campaigns. Actually, I said, I wanted to discuss my wife's work here. His expression shifted. Julia? She's one of our best account directors. I'm sure she is, but I'm concerned about her relationship with Eric Shaw. Greg's face went carefully neutral. What kind of concerns? I slid a folder across the table. The kind that could create problems for your company if they became public. He opened the folder and scanned the documents. Selected emails, restaurant receipts, hotel charges. His jaw tightened. Where did you get these? Does it matter? What matters is that your senior partner is having an affair with a subordinate. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Greg closed the folder. What do you want? Nothing from you. I just thought the board should be aware of potential liability issues. I stood to leave. Oh, and Greg? You might want to have a conversation with Eric about appropriate workplace relationships. Walking through the office on my way out, I spotted Julia at her desk. She looked up, surprised. Alex, what are you doing here? Business meeting with Greg Hamilton. Didn't want to bother you. Her eyes narrowed. What kind of business meeting? The kind that might interest Eric, too. You should ask him about it. I left her sitting there, confusion and worry written across her face. That evening, Julia came home late and angry. Greg Hamilton called Eric into his office today. They had a very uncomfortable conversation about workplace conduct. Really? That's unfortunate. Don't play dumb, Alex. What did you tell him? I looked up from my laptop. I told him the truth. What truth? That his senior partner is sleeping with an employee. That it's a liability issue. Julia's face went white. You can't prove anything. I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. The screen showed printed emails between her and Eric. Actually, I can prove quite a lot. She lunged for the laptop, but I closed it before she could see everything. Those are private communications. Between you and your boss about your affair. Nothing private about adultery, Julia. She stood there, breathing hard, trying to figure out her next move. This is harassment, she said finally. No, this is consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Lisa Shaw. We need to talk. I showed Julia the message. Looks like Eric's wife wants to chat. Should be interesting. Julia grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? To fix the mess you created. Good luck with that. After she left, I called Lisa Shaw. Mrs. Shaw, I got your message. I want to meet. Tonight. Where? Starbucks on Pine Street. 1 hour. Lisa Shaw was nothing like I'd expected. Mid-40s, auburn hair, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. She looked tired. I've suspected for months, she said after we'd ordered coffee. Eric's been working late, taking mysterious phone calls, buying gifts I never received. I'm sorry. This can't be easy. It's not, but I need to know everything. I slid a copy of the documents across the table. She read through them methodically, her expression hardening with each page. 3 months, she said. At least 3 months of lies. What are you going to do? I'm going to make him regret every single lie. She looked up at me. What about you? Same thing. Good. They deserve each other. We talked for another hour, comparing notes, sharing information. Lisa had her own evidence. Credit card statements, phone records, even photos of Eric coming home with lipstick on his collar. I have a lawyer, she said. Divorce attorney, she's very good. I might need a referral. I'll give you her number. But first, I want to make sure Eric and your wife understand exactly what they've lost. We shook hands in the parking lot, an alliance born of mutual betrayal. One more thing, Lisa said. Eric's company is having their annual charity gala next week. Big donors, board members, all the important clients. Julia mentioned it. It would be a shame if something embarrassing happened at such a public event. She smiled, and I realized Eric Shaw had no idea what he was dealing with. Neither did Julia. The charity gala was held at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, one of those events where Seattle's elite gathered to write tax-deductible checks and congratulate themselves on their generosity. Julia spent 2 hours getting ready, trying on 3 different dresses before settling on a red number that probably cost more than most people's rent. You look beautiful, I said, and meant it. Even now, even knowing what I knew, she could still take my breath away. Thank you, she said, but her tone was distant. We'd barely spoken since my meeting with Greg Hamilton. The ballroom was decorated in gold and white, with round tables surrounding a small stage where a jazz quartet played softly. Julia immediately spotted Eric across the room and started walking toward him, but I caught her arm. Before you run off to your boyfriend, there's something you should see. I handed her a program for the evening's events. On the back page was a full-page advertisement from my agency, thanking Morrison and Associates for their partnership on several successful campaigns. The ad featured a photo of me shaking hands with Greg Hamilton. What is this? Business, Julia. Greg hired my agency to handle 3 major accounts. Apparently my little mattress store campaigns impressed him. Her face went pale. That's impossible. Check with Greg if you want. We signed the contract this morning. What she didn't know was that Greg had offered me the contracts after our conversation about Eric and Julia. Apparently the board was very interested in distancing themselves from potential scandal. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, please take your seats. We'll be starting our program shortly. I guided Julia to our assigned table, which happened to be right next to the one where Eric sat with his wife. Lisa Shaw looked stunning in a black evening gown, her hair pulled back elegantly. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. Eric, I said as we sat down, good to see you again. He barely acknowledged me, but Lisa leaned over with a bright smile. You must be Julia, she said. I've heard so much about you. Julia forced a smile. Nice to meet you. Eric talks about you constantly at home. Julia this, Julia that. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about you more than he thinks about me. The table went quiet. Eric's face reddened. Lisa, perhaps we should... Oh, don't be modest, darling. Tell Julia about those late-night phone calls, the ones where you whisper so I can't hear. Julia looked like she wanted to disappear. I was enjoying every second. Actually, Lisa continued, I brought something to share with everyone. She pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. On the screen was a photo of Eric and Julia entering a hotel together, his hand on her lower back. I hired a private investigator last week. Fascinating what they can discover. Eric lunged for the phone, but Lisa pulled it away. Careful, darling. Wouldn't want to cause a scene. The MC called for attention, beginning the evening's program. For the next hour, we sat through speeches about charitable giving and community support, while the tension at our table grew thick enough to cut. During the silent auction, I excused myself and walked to the men's room. Eric followed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he said once we were alone. "Using the facilities. What does it look like?" "This whole thing with Lisa, with the board, with your wife." I turned to face him. "My wife? You mean the woman you've been sleeping with for 3 months?" Julia and you are going to stop. Tonight." "You can't tell me what to do." I stepped closer. "Eric, you're a smart guy, rich family, good education, corner office. But you're also an idiot if you think this ends any way except badly for you." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. See, while you were playing around with my wife, I was documenting everything. Emails, hotel receipts, restaurant charges. I've got enough evidence to bury you professionally and personally." His confidence wavered. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from Julia. I want you to transfer her to a different department. And I want you to think very carefully about whether your marriage is worth throwing away for someone who clearly doesn't respect commitment." I washed my hands and headed for the door. "Oh, and Eric, your wife is planning to file for divorce next week. Might want to call your lawyer." Back at the table, Julia was gone. Lisa informed me she'd stepped outside for air. I found her on the hotel's terrace, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. "I didn't know you smoked." "I don't. Borrowed it from someone inside." She took a long drag. "Lisa knows everything." "Yes, she does. This is going to ruin my career." "Should have thought of that before you decided I was embarrassing." She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw the woman I'd married 8 years ago. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. "Alex, Save it, Julia. We're past apologies." "What happens now?" "Now you figure out whether Eric Shaw is worth losing everything else." We went back inside for the remainder of the gala. The jazz quartet played, people bid on auction items, and everyone pretended not to notice the drama unfolding at table 12. As the evening wound down, Lisa Shaw approached our table one final time. "Julia, it was so nice meeting you," she said sweetly. "I hope we'll see each other again soon, perhaps at divorce proceedings." She walked away, leaving Julia staring after her. "Come on," I said. "Let's go home." The drive back was silent except for the rain on the windshield. Julia stared out the passenger window while I navigated the empty streets. At home, she went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my home office, reviewing the documents Ron had provided. Bank statements, email printouts, hotel receipts, a complete record of betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa Shaw. "Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? I typed back, "What did you have in mind?" "Eric's company has a board meeting Thursday. Would be a shame if certain documents found their way to the board members beforehand." "That would be a shame. I'll be in touch." I finished my whiskey and headed to bed. Julia was already asleep, or pretending to be. In the darkness, I listened to her breathing and wondered how we'd gotten here. Tomorrow, I would start Phase 2. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical Seattle weather that matched my mood perfectly. Julia left early for work, claiming she had meetings all day. I knew better. She was probably strategizing with Eric about damage control. Too little, too late. Lisa Shaw had been busy. By 9 a.m., every member of Morrison & Associates' board of directors had received an anonymous package containing copies of Eric and Julia's email exchanges, hotel receipts, and restaurant charges. The packages were professionally assembled, clearly labeled, and impossible to ignore. My phone rang at 9:15. "Ron here. You see the news yet?" "What news?" "Check the Seattle Business Journal website." I opened my laptop and navigated to the site. The headline made me smile. Morrison & Associates under investigation for workplace misconduct. The article was brief but damaging. An anonymous source had provided evidence of an inappropriate relationship between senior partner Eric Shaw and account director Julia Porter. The company's board was conducting an internal investigation. "How did this get to the press?" I asked Ron. "Lisa Shaw has connections. Her interior design firm works with half the media executives in town. Efficient. There's more. Eric Shaw has been suspended pending the investigation. Your wife's been transferred to a different department." I hung up and called my office, telling my assistant I'd be working from home. Then I settled in to watch the show unfold. At 10:30, Julia called. "Alex, I need you to come pick me up." "Why?" "My car won't start, and I can't get a ride service." Where are you? Morrison and Associates parking garage. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I found Julia standing next to her BMW, looking defeated. Her car was fine, I could tell from 20 feet away. She just needed an excuse to talk. Get in, I said. We drove in silence until she finally spoke. The board suspended Eric this morning. I heard. They're conducting an investigation into our relationship. Thorough of them. This is going to destroy both our careers. I pulled over and turned to face her. Julia, let me explain something. Your career was destroyed the moment you decided to sleep with your boss. Everything that's happening now is just the natural consequence of that decision. You did this. You and that woman. That woman is Eric's wife. Remember her? The person he promised to love and honor? Julia started crying. Not the elegant tears of a movie heroine, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone watching their world collapse. I never meant for this to happen, she said. But it did happen. For 3 months, it happened. While you were telling me I embarrassed you and making me feel like garbage in my own marriage. I started driving again. Where do you want me to take you? Home. Our home. I don't have anywhere else to go. That afternoon, while Julia locked herself in the bedroom, I received another call from Lisa Shaw. Have you seen the latest? What now? Check Eric's social media. I pulled up Eric's LinkedIn profile. Someone had posted screenshots of his emails with Julia in the comments section of his most recent post about maintaining professional integrity. The post had dozens of comments, ranging from shocked to amused to disgusted. Who did this? I have no idea, Lisa said, but I could hear the smile in her voice. Social media can be so unpredictable. By evening, the story had spread beyond the business community. Local gossip blogs picked it up, then social media influencers, then the general public. Morrison's scandal was trending on Twitter. Julia emerged from the bedroom around 7 p.m., looking haggard. It's everywhere, she said. My name, my photo, everything. Welcome to the digital age. My parents called. They saw it on Facebook. Julia's parents were conservative, religious people who'd never fully approved of our marriage. This wouldn't help. What did you tell them? What could I tell them? That their daughter is an adulteress? She slumped onto the couch next to me. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Alex, I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Julia. Hate requires passion, and I don't feel passionate about you anymore. Then what do you feel? Disappointed. Relieved. Free. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Free? Free from pretending our marriage was working. Free from walking on eggshells around your ambition. Free from being treated like an embarrassment. I never meant... Yes, you did. You meant every word, every look, every dismissal. You just never thought there would be consequences? My phone buzzed. A text from Greg Hamilton. Can you come in tomorrow morning? We need to discuss expanding your contract. I showed Julia the message. They're rewarding you, she said bitterly. They're doing business with someone they trust. Novel concept. Friday morning brought more bad news for Julia and Eric. The Seattle Times ran a follow-up story about workplace ethics in professional service firms, using Morrison and Associates as a case study. Eric's suspension had become termination, and Julia's transfer had become a leave of absence pending investigation. I met with Greg Hamilton at 9 a.m. Alex, I want to apologize for the situation with your wife. You don't need to apologize, Greg. You didn't create the situation. Still, it's awkward. But I want you to know that our business relationship is separate from personal matters. I appreciate that. In fact, we'd like to expand your role. 3 more major accounts, and we're considering bringing you on as our primary advertising partner. It was more business than my small agency had ever handled. Life-changing money. There is one condition, Greg said. What's that? We need to maintain clear boundaries, no conflicts of interest. Understood. I signed the contracts and left Morrison and Associates as their primary advertising partner. In the elevator, I passed Chloe, Julia's former best friend and office gossip queen. Alex, she said, looking uncomfortable. I heard about Julia. I'm sorry. Are you? Of course. I mean, we all knew something was going on, but you all knew? Well, it was pretty obvious. The late meetings, the private conversations, the way Eric looked at her. And nobody said anything? It wasn't our place. The elevator reached the lobby, and I stepped out. Chloe, you might want to update your resume. Companies don't usually keep people who enable workplace misconduct. Her face went white as the doors closed. That evening, Julia was waiting for me with packed suitcases. I'm staying at my sister's for a while, she said. Probably for the best? Alex, I know I ruined everything, but nothing, Julia. You made your choices. Now you live with them. She picked up her bags and headed for the door. What happens to us? There is no us. There hasn't been for a long time. After she left, I poured myself a whiskey and sat on the couch in our quiet house. Outside, Seattle rain drummed against the windows, washing the city clean. My phone rang. Lisa Shaw. How are you holding up? Better than expected. You? Same. Eric moved out this morning. Filed for divorce this afternoon. Fast work. I've been planning this for months, just needed the right moment. What's next? Next, we rebuild, without the people who didn't value what they had. I raised my glass to the empty room. To rebuilding. To rebuilding, she agreed. The rain continued to fall, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 2 weeks later, Julia made her final mistake. I was working late in my home office when I heard the front door open. Julia had returned her key when she moved out, but she'd apparently made a copy. She crept through the house like a burglar, heading straight for my office. I watched from the kitchen doorway as she rifled through my desk drawers, looking for the documents that had destroyed her career. She found the manila envelope from Ron and started photographing the contents with her phone. Looking for something? She spun around, nearly dropping the envelope. Alex, I didn't know you were home. Clearly. What are you doing here, Julia? I came to get some of my things. From my desk drawers? She held up the envelope. These documents were obtained illegally. I can use them to prove harassment. Actually, they weren't. Ron's very careful about staying within legal boundaries. I stepped into the office and held out my hand. Give me the envelope. No. Julia, you're in my house without permission, going through my private papers. That's called breaking and entering. This is still my house, too. Check the deed. I had your name removed last week. Her face went pale. You can't do that. I can when you've been using marital assets to fund an affair. Turns out judges don't like adultery. She clutched the envelope tighter. I need these documents. What you need is a good lawyer and a reality check. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Who are you calling? The police. She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. She lost her balance and stumbled, scattering papers across the floor. Don't, she said, scrambling to collect the documents. Please. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't have you arrested. She looked up at me from the floor, mascara smudged, dignity gone. Because I'm your wife. Were. Past tense. My phone rang before I could finish dialing. Lisa Shaw. Alex, turn on Channel 7 News. Now. I grabbed the remote and switched on the TV. The late-night news was running a story about corporate scandals in Seattle. Eric Shaw's face filled the screen. Former Morrison and Associates partner Eric Shaw was arrested this evening on charges of embezzlement and fraud, the anchor reported. According to court documents, Shaw allegedly diverted client funds to personal accounts over a period of 18 months. Julia stared at the screen in shock. The investigation began after Shaw's recent suspension for workplace misconduct, the anchor continued. Prosecutors say the misconduct investigation revealed irregularities in client billing that led to the discovery of the embezzlement scheme. Did you know? I asked Julia. Know what? About the embezzlement. No, I had no idea. But her eyes said otherwise. She'd known something. My phone buzzed. A text from Ron. Check your email. Sent you something interesting. I opened my laptop and found a message from Ron with an attachment. Financial records showing payments from Eric's personal account to Julia's secret credit line. The same credit line she'd used for hotels, restaurants, and jewelry. Julia, look at this. She leaned over my shoulder and read the screen. Her face went white. Those payments are from Eric's embezzled client funds. Congratulations, you're an accessory. She sank into a chair. I didn't know the money was stolen. But you knew it wasn't his salary paying for your affair. What am I going to do? You're going to call a criminal defense attorney, tonight. The news continued with more details about Eric's arrest. Apparently, the FBI had been investigating for weeks, using the workplace misconduct scandal as cover for a financial crimes investigation. This is perfect, Lisa Shaw said when I called her back. Eric won't be able to afford a decent lawyer now. His assets are frozen. What about Julia? What about her? She took money from him, money he embezzled. That's her problem, not yours. But I was still married to Julia, at least on paper. Her legal troubles could become mine. Lisa, I need to ask you something. What? Did you know about the embezzlement when you first contacted me? Silence. Lisa? I suspected. Eric's been spending money we didn't have for over a year. I hired my own investigator 6 months ago. And you didn't think to mention this? I needed Eric to be caught red-handed. The affair gave investigators the opening they needed to examine his finances. So I'd been played. Not maliciously, but played nonetheless. Are you angry? Lisa asked. I looked at Julia sitting in my office chair, staring at financial records that proved her lover was a thief and she was his unwitting accomplice. No, I said. I'm impressed. Good, because there's one more thing. What? The FBI wants to interview you tomorrow about your wife's relationship with Eric and any knowledge you might have about their financial arrangements. I don't know anything about their finances. I know, but they need to confirm that officially. After Lisa hung up, I turned to Julia. Pack whatever you need tonight. You can't stay here. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Alex, please. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Julia, you had an affair with a man who was stealing money to pay for your hotels and dinners. You took gifts bought with embezzled funds. You're facing potential criminal charges. I didn't know. It doesn't matter what you knew. It matters what you did. She started crying again, but this time I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no residual love. Just exhaustion. The FBI is interviewing me tomorrow, I said. I'm going to tell them the truth about everything. Our marriage, your affair, the evidence I gathered. That will destroy me. You destroyed yourself. I'm just cleaning up the mess. She gathered her things and left without another word. I watched from the window as she loaded her car and drove away into the rainy Seattle night. The next morning, I met with FBI agents at their downtown office. They were professional, thorough, and very interested in the timeline of Julia's affair and Eric's financial irregularities. Did you ever suspect that Shaw was using client funds to finance personal expenses? Agent Martinez asked. No. I knew he was spending money on my wife, but I assumed it was his own money. You never questioned how an employee could afford expensive hotels and restaurants on a regular basis. I assumed he was wealthy. Trust fund, family money, something like that. They asked about the documents Ron had provided, the evidence I'd gathered, and my contacts with Lisa Shaw. Everything was legal, everything was documented, everything checked out. One final question, Mr. Porter. Are you planning to reconcile with your wife? No, I'm filing for divorce next week. Agent Martinez nodded. That's probably wise. This investigation is going to get worse before it gets better. That evening, I sat in my quiet house and reflected on the past month. Julia was gone, Eric was in jail, and I was starting over at 41. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was honest. My phone rang. Lisa Shaw. How did it go with the FBI? Fine. They're satisfied I wasn't involved. Good. What about Julia? They're still investigating her. Depends on how much she knew and when she knew it. Do you feel bad for her? I considered the question. And I feel bad for the woman I married 8 years ago, but that woman disappeared somewhere along the way. People change. Some people do. Others just reveal who they always were. Outside, Seattle rain continued its eternal drumming against the windows. But inside, for the first time in months, everything was quiet. The last toast had been drunk, the party was over, and I was finally free.